So I was thinking about us having our next chat, and I have all these ideas of things that I want to talk about. And so I'm just going to let you lead because I'll go all over the place. But I did want to make one comment first because I did see one of the replies was quite a nice, engaged response from somebody who kind of said, yeah, it was kind of cool what you were talking about, but was a bit stuck about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, I did actually watch another video about, I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way, this whole, dying for our sins kind of thing, in terms of the fact that there was a pact made that meant that we were safe because of that sacrifice. Okay. So I'm not saying like 1,000 billion%, because maybe in a timeline that was the case and was necessary. And I would never want to diss Jesus if that was the sacrifice that was made. I was just offering an alternate kind of view that's maybe not so heavy.
Sure.
So I just want to make it clear that there are no absolutes, right? And it's just about offering alternate perspectives for people. So I just wanted to make that point.
I agree with you entirely. I think one of the stumbling blocks that we have, one of the worst names that was ever given to our movement was the truther movement, because it's an oxymoron, because nobody knows the truth. Nobody has access to the truth. So the worst that you can be is dogmatic, and we've had enough of dogma, is saying this is how it is, because we don't know. And you mentioned timeline. How many different timelines are running, how many timelines are converging or splitting up. It's very difficult to put your finger and say this is the real truth. We just haven't got a clue.
Well, I mean, is there any real truth anyway until you return back to source? I suppose the original absolute is the source, right? And everything that comes out and ripples out, so it's split into two, and then it's split into two again, and here we are, right? As in almost infinite fractals, and each of the fractals that we are, or the rock is, or the tree, or the animal, or the cloud, or the raindrop, is there to provide relief for all the other fractals. We're all making up a part of the story, and it's about, we are that tapestry. And I know it's all the cliches again, but it's the cliches for a reason. And it's about honoring your part. And that's why they've trapped us into, following the law, and everybody being in lockstep, and everybody wearing a uniform at school and at work or whatever. It's because it's to snuff out the individuality that's wishing to express itself for the full expansion of source into everything it can be, which was the original intention. Now, of course, God's in also all of the dark stuff that's happening, right? But again, it's there for the learning experience. And we wouldn't now be quaking with excitement of how amazingly bright it's going to be very soon if we hadn't already, some of us, experienced really, really dark things. It was you never would not do it, on the journey from the external, if that makes sense. Before we chose what we were going to do before we came here, and we chose all of the experiences that we'd have. But then we had free will, so it's how far you want to delve within or analyze your experiences and turn it around, from
Sure.
dark to light. That we are those transmuters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned free will. In my kind of conversations that I have with my guides, the emissaries, when we talk about free will, because it's difficult to get your head around, like how much of our life is already preordained, planned, and how much is part of that free will. And what they intimated was that the free will that we have is exercised before we come here, when we are choosing what it is that we want to experience. And so our free will is, I'm going to have this experience, this one, this one, this one, this one. So and then we come and then we start living out our experience. So it's difficult, because the story is, people say, what would be the point of living if everything was preordained? What would be the point?
Yeah.
It's just like, what are we, just avatars just running a program? We definitely have free will, but quite where we choose what we want, I don't know.
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, and I've had a few kind of conversations with younger people, and the way I now see it is, yeah, there is free will in the cosmos, and apparently the Earth section is the section of free will, and there are actually other parts of the cosmos where there isn't quite free will. Maybe the game isn't, the simulation's not as developed. And so obviously this was all quite new. But the thing is that those who chose to be volunteers to come in, we had to kind of like pause our free will, which is, external. I don't even know how to explain it because it's a crazy idea. So we came in knowing we wouldn't really have free will, because ultimately the feeling to do the right thing overrides everything. So it's just the Earth Terrans who probably really have the choice of doing the right or the wrong thing. But do they really? And also, because what choices do we really have? Because we're in this prison matrix where we're not given the real choices. We're not given, it's all fake choices. So we're not really exercising our free will. It's only when you step outside the matrix that you can then have free will to make real choices, which are to do with life and death, and what team you want to play on, and be prepared to sacrifice everything for that, because that's real and this is fake. So I think in this reality now, in the prison reality that's been, the frequency net that's around us, we don't have free will. Especially if you're giving your power away and signing, you're writing a signature instead of autographing things, and, you're going along with the stories, you're giving away your power. You therefore have no free will. All the choices you make are irrelevant, because it's to do with the nitty-gritty. Oh, which movie should we go and see? Or where do you want to go on holiday at Christmas? Or, it's like these decisions that people think are so important in their lives are all distractions. And it's only when you actually come back to the self, and we had to go through COVID so that certain of us and everybody would have a chance to know who you really were and what you really stood for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think when going back to this idea of free will and how much of our lives are planned or whatever, the best way of looking at it is when you look at your life in retrospect and you look at all of the experiences that you've had. And I certainly, when I look back, I think, wow, now I know why I went through that. Now I know why I had to experience that. And it's kind of every step leads you to where you are. So I've always felt that my life has been extremely guided, and I've been guided into bad stuff and out of bad stuff on purpose so that I could learn the lessons that I had to learn. I think where we get stuck is where we get guided in, as we've written our plan, and we're guided into this bad stuff where we have to learn lessons and we don't learn them. And so we come out of them, and then we get guided into the same lesson again, and we don't learn it. And then, that's that's the kind of karmic loop that we can get caught in, where we just got to keep until one day we go, shit with this. That's it. I've learned it. I'm not going to do this anymore. And learning is a forgiveness as well. It's kind of forgiving yourself and forgiving the experience, and then that's when you can move on.
Yeah, and that all comes down to the inner battle, which is the only battle. I think we touched on it last week, and because the external's out there, isn't it? We can disengage at any time. I mean, I know it's really hard for some people because they're so trapped, and they don't know that they have a choice. But yeah, we do, and it's about the inner battle. It's about listening to the voice, the whisper, and not giving in to the voice that's louder, that we think, oh yeah, and it's always giving in when you listen to the wrong one, and the right voice is so gentle. And how many times do we go against it? And I guess that's about soul integration, and the more you actually do pay attention to and listen to the right voice and start acting upon it and giving it homage and respect, and it's a muscle, willpower. It's about willpower, and I'm terrible I have the worst willpower, but I have an extremely strong sense of justice and what's right. And that is what fires me up. So it's not, I'm not all energetic and doing all this stuff because I have an amazing discipline and willpower. I just live my life in a way where I can't handle BS. I just can't, especially if, nefarious stuff's going on. It's like, hello, wake up, everybody. What's going on. But anyway, going back to the choices. So yeah, it's the free will, isn't it, to do the right thing or not. But all you're doing is causing yourself suffering and separating yourself more each time you don't listen. And then your soul's very powerful. It's going to manifest situations and people and things to keep, because your soul's in charge, really. And it's like, okay, you don't want to listen. All right, so let's get that guy over there to come over and teach you a lesson. Let's just make you walk over there and go past, you know what I mean? And you think it's all random, but it's not. Your higher self has orchestrated, as you said. We all sat together. You and I would have at some point had a conversation, and you would have gone, right, okay, so when it's really dark and you really feel like you're not being heard, I'm going to show up just after Christmas, and it was another lady actually who I spoke to called Dawn, who I had joined this guy Rob Love's WhatsApp group, and there's a few people there, and she saw me and she messaged me and she said, I'd love you to join this group, it's really cool. And I just jumped in going, hi everybody, right? So so she was part of that plan as well. We all agreed when we'd meet and how it would happen, right?
Sure. And I want to just circle back to when you're talking about the inner voice. Just in my experience, because I've worked with a lot of people who are at a point in terms of therapy who've got a problem in their life, and they know that they want something more. They know that there's more to life than what they've got, and so kind of my role is to help them to cleanse the past and then look at themselves now and where do they want to go. But lots and lots and lots of times when and nearly like 99% of my clients are women, and I say, they might be in a bad relationship, and I say to them, when you met this person, your partner, and when you were about to go into the relationship, what was your gut feel about this person? What was your intuition telling you? And without exception, they all say, my intuition was saying, don't go there, don't do it. And then they did it, and as you say, it's a muscle. It's the quietest voice. It whispers. And then the ego comes in and tells you what you have to do. Oh, you should be doing this because, he's got loads of money and he's powerful and you'll have a lovely life and all of that. And so we've got to learn to be able to, I think that's the beauty of meditation or any of those techniques where you silence the mind and you can actually hear the whispers a lot louder then. But in day-to-day life, it's virtually blotted out. You don't hear it.
Yeah, and it's about giving it respect. I mean, why is it though? I mean, I've been in those situations so many times, and why is it that, I guess for women especially, why do we go against that? I mean, it's obviously some kind of negative program, because it's silly to go against your survival, and there is always that instinct. I say now, because we're often met with decisions and choices where we're kind of going from one, we're weighing it up, right? One side, you wake up one morning, you're like, oh no. And then the next morning you wake up and it's like, no, actually. But the thing, if you're having that debate, don't do it.
Sure.
If you've got one little doubt, even if you manage to convince yourself with 1,000 reasons against that little whisper, if you've got that, if it crosses your mind, you have to pay attention. And but the thing is, why do we do that thing where we just go, no, it's okay, it'll be okay. It's so crazy, and it's so scary. There's a weird, I think it's because there's a weird insecurity about standing up for yourself, as we've seen. And so maybe it's like, the honoring means you're going to be on your own, or that somebody's going to attack you for not listening or going along with them. And so it's always the bully. We're getting rid of the bully archetype, basically, and we all have to stand up. And so we have to stand up for our inner voice, our inner child. And first we have to get to know that as something very real, because we are multidimensional, and there is a child version still existing now. It's alive, it's separate, but it's new, and it's all in the same place. And it's about integrating each of the cells, the parallel cells who are all on different frequencies, and therefore stuck in different space-time locations. It's a bit like Interstellar when he goes through the event horizon and he sees all in when he's in the kind of the cube time matrix, the space-time matrix with all the memories and how they all link. And it's about bringing it all into one current space-time, and then you can be at peace. So it's about getting to know the dark side, the shadow side, the addictions and all that, and but forgiving them. It's not about, all right, on Monday I'm going to stop this, or on Tuesday I'm going to take up this and I'm going to start. It's about being, first of all, coming to understand and allow those uncomfortable feelings that are pushing you to do certain things and behaviors and make those choices. Be with that space that's got the doubt and allow that, because facing up to the truth isn't easy. It's not, we got ourselves into a situation where we just gave away all our power. So of course, reclaiming it is going to be uncomfortable, because as you start to think about who you are, what you stand for, and honor that voice, that's what's connected to source and God. And of course, the second you start doing that, all the frequencies, the demonic frequencies, are going to be like focused on you, because you suddenly light up on the planet as a beacon, and they're like, quick, go. And you will then get a tidal wave of negative thoughts to override the little positive thing that you're trying to do. And this is where the willpower just comes in, and making a date and honoring the date, because ultimately that date where you decide to sit and have breakfast with God, and you literally just go, okay, I'm going to have, and you even write a letter, dear God, I'd like to invite you for breakfast. And I'm not talking about the biblical bearded, I'm talking about that, the frequency that can come in through your heart and your pineal and allow you to vibrate at a different frequency, which changes everything in your life. This is what it's about. And people just can't believe it's true, but it's so real. This is what was real before we got put in the false matrix. And so then you just sit and wait for 10 minutes. And if nothing happens, the fact that you've actually just opened up that space, it will be answered when you least expect it. God's a bit of a prankster. And also, if there's a certain lesson you need to learn, it's going to happen, so you might leave that 10-minute breakfast and think, oh, God never showed up. Well, you know what? He's trying his best. And another thing I always say, and I might have said it last time, that God didn't abandon us. We abandoned God, because we don't create these spaces. We think going along to church, if you happen to be someone who goes to church, is enough to sit in congregation and be there and then go back to your life and argue. And it's about, we are being called to allow God to come in and work through us now, all of us, right? And to see the vision of the kingdom of heaven and act accordingly to bring that about. And that means being peaceful with people. I mean, look, you can still turn around and tell someone to bug off if they're giving you grief, right? And you can say whatever. But ultimately, if that person was to come and knock on your door and say, actually, you know what? I'm starting to wonder what's going on. You're not going to slam the door in the face. Oh, you didn't want to listen before. You'd have your arms open. You'd be crying with joy to be able to welcome another person into the kingdom, right? I sound like I'm a cult leader, and I'm not, because this is real and it's happening, and it's like, it's time. So make space for the divine, and make space for your higher self to come in and honor that and have a little temple and know it's real, and it's the most important relationship you could ever have.
I agree entirely. One of the things that I've talked about to help people to do that is the act of surrendering yourself. And having breakfast with God is exactly that, isn't it? It's sitting, saying, here I am. What do you want me to do? And it's something that I do on a weekly basis. I offer myself up and I surrender myself to God, and I say, I surrender myself to you. Show me what it is that you want to do. Guide me, point me in the right direction. The relief that gives me, the peace that gives me, is I've never had that peace in my life before, where it's like, oh, it's not all me. It's not all down to me. It's not all my responsibility. And lots of us take that on, which it's a question I want to ask you on that theme. So I watched Richard Vobes. I don't watch Richard as much as I used to, but when he has an interesting guest on, I watch him. And he was talking. He was having an interview, and he said, "I think soon I'm going to change what I do, and I'm going to start to do rather than talk about how to do." And he was getting himself a little bit vexed, which I understand. And he was saying, I interview these people, they have all these great ideas, and everybody watches going, yeah, that's right, but they don't do anything. And he said, so I'm just going to have to do it myself. Yeah. What's your take on what our responsibility is, getting the balance between letting things flow and actually making things happen?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's very interesting that you've asked this question. And I love how telepathic things are and how much in a flow they like. That lady before she works for my landlord who was out. She came and I was just explaining about telepathy. I said, it's a bit like, you think about someone and they call you. And literally as I went to message you called. And I was like, oh. So yeah, I had a very interesting astrology reading yesterday with a lady called Kathy Rose, who I had seen on an interview with Pam Gregory. And I booked the session in November, and she only had the 1st of April, but it turned out that this is the perfect time for me to have heard the message. So my sister, when I was in touch with my sister briefly recently, had told me, Kerry, your astrology is insane. Like, it's pretty crazy. So I just wanted to double check with somebody that was a bit more knowledgeable to see how much attention I might need to pay it. And she said, yeah, your chart's pretty crazy. And for the next 2 years, it's just out. It's just off, she didn't have words. So we had a
charts.
yeah. And we had a really interesting chat. But what she was saying to me, because she said, you're a maverick. You've got maverick all over your chart. You came here to change things, to put a spanner in the works. And we know that, right? The rebel gene. But she said, and it's interesting because I do my crochet, then I'll go and do a bit of research and I'm always like, oh, I need to do videos, and I've just can't quite seem to, anchor onto anything. And she said, it's now actually time for you. You don't need to be the maverick. It's now that people are waking up. It's time for you to focus on the new realm and what's going to be in that. And so I think I'm going to now start reaching out to people who are making the flying cars, and I'm going to do a diary, like a video journal, of my journey, focus on me, because I can't really, it's taking off already, and we now need to be introducing kind of other ideas for people to keep leveling up, right? We don't need to fight the vaccine and the virus and all that anymore. It's clearly going to be taken down, and we need to get ready for the healing and the awesome stuff that's coming. So I'm going to use crochet as a tool to teach people to heal. And then I would go and have breakfast this morning, and there's a lady sitting there. I get talking to her, and we've ended up swapping details. Her daughter's just moved into this really awesome house around the corner. She said, come and do the crochet and teach it at this house. And I'm like, I've driven past that house so many times and thought I would buy that house. So it's just kind of crazy that just after having this integration, and she said it's okay to take up space in the world. I think a lot of us feel like imposters to be these kind of not leaders, but to kind of be in a position to inspire. It's like, well, who am I? But I do know I've got all these ideas and joy, and it would be really cool to do stuff. So I'm definitely kind of going to be changing my focus a bit. And I think I am going to serve papers to a few people so that my job is done and my conscience is clear, that I warned people of what is coming if they continue down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just going to start really focusing on me, and I want to levitate and I want to bend spoons, and I want to open a school, which is a, defense against not even defense against dark arts, but we won't need it, but like a Harry Potter school,
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, now you need to start really focusing on, the good stuff and manifesting that, because we are master manifestors. That's what we're here for. But if 60% of your time you're focusing on it's good stuff, and it makes me go, let's go, bring it on, when they're all standing up for themselves. But that's not my fight any longer. So it's about each of, we've got to know, look at who you are and what you love. And if you love singing, do something with that. And if you love crochet, do something with that. And if you like caring for people, do something like that. Follow your heart, and know that if you stay in that space, it will just magically unfold around you. Like, this is how it happens. So again, I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Something you said about following your heart. The sense that I get is because we're all part of God, thus therefore we are all creators. And when I see when I've worked with people who are deeply depressed or very anxious and stuff like that, when I get a snapshot of their life, what they're not doing is creating anything. They're not following the heart. They're not following the bliss.
Yeah.
And when I see people actually starting to, find what are you here for? What is your purpose? That's the first question that we should get an answer for. Once you start following your purpose, suddenly there's no room for depression, or it's not as important, or there's no room for anxiety because you're in the moment. And I think what we've got is a society that has inculcated, and you were talking about this before, about how much of us is us, a society that's inculcated in us to worry about the past and to worry about the future and not to be in the moment, not to live in the moment, and that's the downfall, because we're all worried about tomorrow. Are we going to pay the rent at the end of the month? What I said to the person last week, what I wrote in Twitter last week, all the wrong things for us to be focused on.
Yeah. And that's how they want it, right? And it's about, the fear of what's going to happen. But the thing is, my life, and the reason I think I was able to arrive where I am through the past 4 years relatively quickly and easily, is because I have had so many near-death experiences. And I don't mean just actual physical crazy things like being stung by a stonefish and nearly dying in Malaysia, but things like, the council sending a letter to my mum when I was a kid and saying, oh, we found out you worked in a chip shop and earned £6 or something, and you now owe money to us, and we didn't have it. Things like that. Or we're going to, they were always threatening us. So there was always a threat, whether it was the boys on the estate that used to throw rocks or kick footballs. I don't know where I just went then, sorry. I'm thinking about how difficult it is for people to change things, right? Is that where
Sure.
we're at? And
to get to become the creator, rather than being in fear and worry.
yeah, but it's so we're all in the now in a state of fear, as you said, where it's very difficult to stay in an open space. That's why it's really important to do something creative, whether it's running or gardening or crochet or drawing, and often the thing that you love, when you're in a state of depression, it feels almost impossible to do it, because the demons, the demonic energy of the frequencies that's holding you down is going to increase if you try to do anything. I used to notice that whenever I was doing some of the sort of ceremonies in the defense against the dark arts, we had to do 6 or 7 kind of rituals with using limes and salt and natural things, and they all had different significance. And you'd be shown how to do it, and you'd do the thing, blah blah blah, and you'd have it done by the chief guy, Mr. Din, and then you would have to do it for yourself. And I tell you, it was crazy. The day of preparation, you'd be so depressed. I'd be crying. I'd be thinking, what am I doing? I don't want to do this. I hate it. It's a load of nonsense. It's, and there would be so much resistance to actually doing it until it was done. And then there would be so much relief. And I just always think, God, this is crazy. Like, why does that happen? But I now know it's the dark side. Again, like I said, when you start to rise up and you're a beacon, at that point of the beginning, they're going to come. It's the whack-a-mole, right? And so you have to push through that, and we have to fake it till we make it. And once you get going, once you start to feel that feeling, that empowered feeling, and it's like a dizzy, giddy lightness of, ooh, get the music on, dance around, go back into when you were, whatever you were doing, raving or whatever, or doing your salsa lessons, and be in that space for as much as you can. And don't worry when it goes and when the darkness comes back, because we are in this frequency war and we're literally going from timeline to timeline and we're going backwards and forwards. And my landlord came up to me the other day and he said, it's been a bit funny, past few months. He said things in my house keep like disappearing and turning up somewhere else and moving and stuff. And my first thought was like, oh my God, it's me. Right. And I said, oh, is that since I moved? He went, well, yeah. I said, well, no, it happens to me as well. Sorry about that, as if it's my fault. And then afterwards, I messaged him. I said, actually, no, it's happening to a lot of people. It's the time we're in and you're experiencing it because you're open. It's actually nothing to do with me. It's just, it's your experience. And, that's what's going on. So I think you wouldn't notice if you weren't aware of it, right? So it's always about the awareness and the attention. It's everything. And that's where the guarding your thoughts, right? So let's say with certain truthers who have harmed me, am I going to go on a rampage and go out there and start putting his name everywhere? And I'm not, because people are not going to believe me, and they're going to be like, oh, because they want to believe this truther. But if I let God deal with it, I get to sit back and enjoy the fall, not in a horrible place, right? But I'm also free because I know it wasn't me that instigated that. It was a higher power beyond me that saw, and maybe I was wrong. So if I take action, I could be reacting from a wrong place, right? So it's about, like you said, the surrender. We've got to surrender to the process, but we've also got to be proactive in creating this new space that we want to be in. I don't know if that's...
Sure.
I keep repeating myself, maybe, but never mind.
That's okay.
It's for me. I'm repeating it for me.
We all repeat ourselves. Okay, so I've got a question for you, because you've mentioned you talk a lot about sort of demonic forces and negative energies, and obviously we're in a very heavy density here. There's no two ways about it. We know that we're in a heavy density. Right. So I watched this interesting lady who was talking about channeling. She used to be a channeler, okay? And she said she stopped channeling because she's realized that all people who channel are channeling demons, okay? And that they are just being taken over, they're being possessed or whatever. Oh, obviously I channel, right? And I'm definitely not channeling demons, in my opinion. But what do you think about that? What do you think about that premise of, how have we got to protect ourselves if we're going to be doing channeling? Or do you think that channeling is a demonic source? What do you think?
Well, so, we're just back to the duality, aren't we, again? So we all have a channel. We all have an open link. It's a bit like Avatar, when they link the tail kind of thing. It's what are you going to connect it to?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where know thyself. And the demons are only going to come into people that have the potential to be corrupted. And we have seen with certain truther or people that came out, I've seen and had other people confirm them actually be possessed whilst in a live. And it usually happens when they get a lot of followers, and then it becomes about, they start feeling the feels of power, and they start feeling respected and heard, and that becomes an addictive feeling that they then will, and then once you become attached to that feeling and you're using it, that's when, the frequency already becomes lower because you're not a pure channel. Now, I don't channel anyone except my higher self. It's always been about, it's almost like I see myself as this guardian archangel. That's what I aspire to be. And, looking at my chart and looking at certain things in my life, and I will come out and talk about this soon, but I do feel a massive connection to Gabriel. And, I'm like, I don't think I am, but at the same time, I'm thinking, well, if anybody was going to manifest as Gabriel on Earth now, would you not be a possible contender kind of thing, right? So it's not, so then am I going to start going, oh, I'm not going to go around saying, and I'm not saying this, it's just an example, oh, I am Archangel Gabriel, I'm channeling a Gabriel. No, you are who you are, right? And you are, Gordon. You probably have your starseed name. Like I think mine is Damashmi. And when I actually heard this name and I looked it up in 2021 on Gematria, the first thing that came up was Christ, and then it said Kerry. And I'm like, shit, so is that my higher being name? So these are all the things that I don't talk about very, I'm not going to go and start a channel and go, oh my God, check it out. My name's linked, because it's not about that. It's all energy. And it's about, all I have to do is take my frequency and try to ripple that out to people if it helps them. I'm not here to save anyone except myself, right? And to know me. And I'd be honored to be a spokesperson or a fractal of that. And it's not about whether I was, it's about whether I want to be. Because anything's possible and everybody could become a fractal of the same thing, And so, channeling, yeah, if people are saying that they're, I don't know, I think you can tell with the energy, Gordon, like with you, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that you are connected to a positive frequency, and but I believe it's your higher self.
Yeah, I know. Lots of other people have said, I think you're just connecting to your higher self. Who knows?
Mm.
Who knows?
And
But
it's
my higher self has chosen to use a name.
and also your higher self is a collective, probably. You
Definitely.
come from a collective, and you are the representative of that collective here on Earth. You were the one chosen of that group to come here and be the spokesperson and to be the anchor and the bridge for what's going to be coming soon. Okay, bye bye. So it's about we are the bridge, we're the bridge, and we've got one foot in 2D and one foot in beyond the veil,
Sure.
And it's just honoring that, isn't it? But yeah, you're giving messages of hope and inspiration and advice, and you're also emitting a frequency. And when people listen, it's not even the words, it's the tone, your energy, and you're so gentle and you're so loving and so kind and compassionate and strong, and it really shows. And so it makes me happy to hear you reference the emissaries, because it's real. So yeah, I don't know. And there are people, but yesterday a video popped up on my channel, and it was a lady, and I don't want to say too much because I really would like to find her and have a conversation with her. She's living in a caravan, clearly been through the mill, 53, same age as me. And she's literally my twin sister, but not physically, but everything. She started to just talk. She's had 40 views, 2 likes. I wrote loads of comments, and when I went back later, they were all gone. And I wanted to connect with her because everything she was saying was just so she might look dark. She was talking about getting to know her demon. She said, we've all got a demon. And she's referring to the inner battle of, the light and the dark side, and what's going to actually take over the vessel, because that's where we're at. It's to reference Q, it clearly states we're in it's a war for our souls. And so you've got the positive frequencies and the negative frequencies. And because they're bombarding us all the time with everything negative and in the cube and all that, we're always being pulled to that side, right? So it's about your frequency and about you taking charge of your vessel and knowing who you are. And then you can't be used as some of these poor people have been.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. And I think you made a good point about, one of the inner battles that we've got, if we're looking at life in terms of the hero's journey, the hero's journey is you must fight your dragon, and the dragon is part of you. You must overcome that. But one of the issues that we've got, the impediment we've got, is our ego, the earthbound ego, the one that we're in the process of ascending. And that one is, it loves a bit of attention. It loves a bit of kudos and position and power and everything. And so, yes, as you say, when lots of people started speaking out, and suddenly they were just so popular because everybody was desperate for an answer. Yeah. Everyone was desperate to hear something. And they've probably had to go through their own battles. And I know some of them have kind of shifted now. They've shifted away from that. Like, no, I'm not here to be giving dates and times and what's going to happen specifically. You know, and the beautiful thing about the emissary, since the beginning, they have never, ever, nor would they ever get into setting timelines and events. In fact, they keep out of it.
Yeah.
Nothing. All they do is talk about a message of great hope and the great awakening, and that from the beginning, that's what they said to me, and they've never changed it. And that for me is the measure. I think the measure of who am I connecting to. The message shouldn't change dramatically, and also it should always, if every message should leave the person you're talking to uplifted, and if it doesn't, if it leaves them fearful, then I'm not sure that's the right, that's not the right connection. But in my opinion, for what I do anyway.
But it's all learning, isn't it? So the people who are stuck listening to maybe the false messages or the slightly corrupted messages, that's their lesson, isn't it, to learn? And again, as I did say, it is free will, and we have to now allow people to come to us. I know I've put myself out there enough that I'm available if people need me, and I'm now just going to start. And it's about just doing your own thing, being you. And again, it's the self-responsibility and the growing up. And the reason that these truthers, the reason that the power and all that it gets to them, it's just because of the insecurity. These are the people who have been, tormented as children, who were ignored and not loved. And they've just got gaping holes in them that they're trying to fill. And they are on the right path, a lot of them, with sending out the messages. But then what happens is when they go to these meetups and stuff, and that everybody's socializing, and you'll see that certain truthers are being more kind of like bowed down to, it triggers them, and then that's when and you've got to notice that trigger. You've got to notice the trigger, and if you have that trigger in a situation, you then have to go away and you have to heal that trigger, and you've got to, and we don't know how to heal it, but we have to at very least say, okay, I have a trigger around being ignored or not heard, or whatever it is, and we have to be with that and heal it. And that's what we're here for, isn't it? To work out how to do that in the quickest way possible for people. And we're all in it together. We've all got stuff we're dealing with.
All of us, every single one. We can never point the finger at anybody else, because we're just ignoring the biggest job that we've got. The lifetime's job is to sort ourselves out, sort our shit out.
And like my ego wanted to attack this guy because of it was horrific what happened, and I was so angry. And again, it was like, oh my God, how dare you go around and talk about me as being this doing what you did to me. And I was like, there was this telepathic message. It's not even in words. Like, it's okay. It will be dealt with. It's going to be dealt with. It will be dealt with. You don't even just let go. But it would keep rising up. But I'm now, it doesn't bother me now. When I think about that person, I just think, oof. In fact, I just think I don't want to enjoy it too much when the fall comes. I don't want to gloat or whatever. I do have compassion, and I suspect that he was okay to start. I mean, I think another truther who also had an experience with him and was very shocked. So I do suspect he's been, unfortunately, he was MK Ultra as a kid, and now he's being used, to kind of mislead a little bit. I don't know, but anyway, It's not my business.
No, and that message is a message that I talked about ayahuasca, the ayahuasca experience, and meeting Pachamama and everything. One of the biggest messages that I had, the biggest lessons that I was given was over and over again, that is not your business. That is not your business. Get your nose out of that. That's not your business. And getting us to still, getting me to look back at myself, because it's very easy. One of the reasons why we criticize people, I believe, is, well, for a few reasons, but when we're not feeling so great about ourselves, if we can criticize people and make them lower than us, that makes us feel a little bit better about who we are. And so we tend to do that. But also when we criticize other people, it gives us the allowance to not look at ourselves. It's easy, spending your whole time going, you. And what I learned, I mean, I was a people pleaser for so long. And my whole outlook on life was, how can I get people to like me? And boy, that's selling your soul. Boy, that is you'll
Yeah.
do some weird, stupid things just to get people to like you. And it's a meaningless thing because you can never do it. But then I reached this beautiful turning point in my life where I realized that people's opinions aren't worth shit. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
Yeah.
People's opinions, and especially people's opinions of me, aren't worth shit because they change from moment to moment, depends on my behavior to them,
Yes,
So
exactly.
once I learned that lesson, I was free then. I was free to say, well, it doesn't really matter. All I've got to do is as you said, to your own self, be true. Be true to yourself, and then it doesn't matter after that. If people like it, fantastic. If they don't like it, so what? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's the things that I would say to, like, my kids were, like all kids are bullied, right? So my daughters would come home and say, Mom, blah, 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 blah. And what would I say? Imogen, you are perfect. You are amazing. You are the funniest, smartest, most fabulous child I have ever met. And these people, they're just behaving. Maybe they're not happy at home. Maybe these bullies, maybe their parents. I always brought my kids up to always think about where other people might be at that makes them
Yeah.
behave a certain way. And often when people mistreat you, it's because they see that you're a light. They see, oh, there's someone who's strong, and they're acting out. It's a tantrum because we're all traumatized. And the thing is, all these men and women who are just staunchly trying to carry on and, keep calm and carry on are in so much pain. And obviously then the fact that the rug's being pulled from under their feet and they're clinging on, the rug's been taken to the tip and they're still hanging on to the rug. And it's like, it's time to let go. It's okay. We're here. And of course they're angry and they're going to lash out and they're going to try. And in fact, a lot of it is tests. How strong are you really for my pain? And so them attacking you, if you just crumble, like I have so many times, it's built into me because of what happened as an infant, the MK Ultra mind, trauma-based mind control. I just would collapse every time in devastation of why are people just not nice? And then and so I really have to brainwash myself into thinking about other people and where they're at, and just being compassionate and forgiving. And it's frustrating as heck, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And the whole thing about knowing yourself and loving the child within and all that stuff that everybody just rolls their eyes and groans at, because who wants to do that? I mean, why would you want to get to know yourself, which is hidden away in here, when there's all this going on out here? And that's Satan's trap. And the really crazy thing is, right, it's like training to run a marathon, but this is a spiritual marathon, home to the self, the heart. And it's hard at the beginning, but then you'll have a little moment where you get a runner's high, you get a spiritual high, because your child just goes, ooh, hello. And you're like, oh, that feels good. And then it'll go again. And you just have to keep making consistent, like literally make a date with yourself and God. Your child self on Monday and your God on, whatever, however, or all of you, or all your guides. And just promise yourself, okay, I promise I'm going to be there. And don't let yourself down, because if you do, that's how you treat other people. And that's information for you to know how other people respond to you. Because if you can't keep a date with yourself, you're guaranteed that you let other people down in different ways because you're afraid of facing emotional stuff or truth or relationship things. Everybody's afraid to feel, but to make changes and to move on and to level up, it hurts. It feels shit. And that's why most people don't do it. It's in here, it's in your solar plexus, it's in your heart, and it's just, it's the worst feeling, but we have to go through it like you would train to run. And it is the most important thing. And I know I'm repeating myself because it's my higher self saying this, repeating it to me. And you and whoever else is listening, I'm just sharing the message I'm receiving from me in case it's useful for you. I'm not here, Kerry Harrison or Kerry DeCourcy, whatever, preaching and saying, well, this is what I think you should do. I'm saying this is what I'm being guided to do. And it has made a huge difference, especially considering where I've come from and how it began and how lonely it's been and how much resistance and darkness. And it's amazing. It's incredible. And I want to share. I actually am going to start a workshop that's going to be complimentary. It's a gift. I'm going to take 12 people at a time and for maybe a couple of weeks, and we'll do 4 sessions with time to integrate. And I'm literally just going to activate people. We're going to just have conversations, maybe look at a few subjects that people want to go through. I'm going to share information and resources and tools that I've used. And the workshop is about empowering the lions to then go off and do the same and empower other people. That's how we do this. I'm not here to, I don't know, and I can't do individual sessions for people because there's not enough time, but we can definitely all start coming together in groups and doing this, and then that increases the power of it as well. So I am going to start that soon, and that's my dream. That's what I want to do.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Well, listen, Kerry, why don't we leave it like that? If do you need people to contact you to
yeah. Well, I dare say we will probably connect again, right? So I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks really getting it out, getting it kind of fleshed together. There has to be some structure, but it is going to be free flow depending on who comes in, right? It's going to be along the Temple of the Blue Rose kind of thing. It's going to be the Essenes kind of teachings, empowering people to connect, right? And to create their own humanitarian project or their own school or their own thing, right? To then go out and help. So when it's ready, I will let you know, and I'll probably do a video and have links and stuff, and
sure. Absolutely.
that way. It's probably going to be on Telegram. I'll do it on Telegram with because there's an amazing feature on Telegram to have videos and conversations and stuff. So like classrooms. So anyway, I do know though that you need to leave as well.
Yeah, so I've got a client coming in half an hour, so I need to get myself sorted.
Yes.
But listen, Kerry, another lovely chat. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. You know, and the last one was very well received, and I'm sure this one will be too.
Well, it was, like I said, I wasn't quite expecting it. I thought I had another 50 minutes and I had wet hair and everything, but it's all good. And I'm going to go and finish. I've started a blanket. So this is the flower in the middle, and this is a mandala. And when we make these things, we are creating out of the ether from a stick and a string. You're creating magic. So that's going to be featuring soon. But anyway, thank you again. Absolutely awesome.
Thank you very much, Kerry. All right. Okay. We'll see one another in a few weeks. Yeah.
We will. No.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.